editor of the resource, and the editor and the vendor can be different. One that can be the consortium who has negotiated for you a special price. In France, for example, maybe some of you have heard this name, we have a national-wide consortium that is negotiating with resource vendor prices for all French universities. This consortium is called Couperin. Have you heard of it? No. I will say no one knows them in Philippines. They will be not happy. No, I'm kidding. Couperin is negotiating for many resources that are used by most universities. Couperin is negotiating the price and the license and all the constraints and the content of everything. Okay, so Coral will let you enter all the organizations that are dealing with your electronic resources as with any role. So vendor, editor, consortium supporting you, etc., etc. Each organization can have one or more contacts. So and the role of each contact. So you can enter this organization, my sales contact is Mr. Blah Blah, my technical contact is Mrs. Blah Blah, etc. You can also in Coral enter all the issues you have faced with a given organization. By an issue, I mean a problem. So, because most, hello? Because most, do you hear me? Or it's strange? It's working, not working? Oh, it's... In fact, I am always moving my hand, so they found a solution, they give me a mic, so I cannot move my hands. I understand. It is something in the south of France we often do, and south of France, Italy, we speak with our hands. Entering issues you have with an organization means any kind of problem you face with this organization, and this is very important because usually the contract you sign with organization includes some constraints related to availability of resources, etc. And if your vendor does not enforce the rule you have signed, you are supposed to be able to ask for a rebate next year or a free month, etc., etc. The next module of Coral is the licensing module, and it is something very important because when you buy a physical material, a physical book, once you have it in your library, it is your book, you do what you want with it. If you want to borrow it to someone, you can. If you want to remove one page, you can. If you want to read it in the wrong sense, you can. You can do what you want. This item is yours. With electronic resources, that's not the same. That's not at all the same thing. Each electronic resource you buy comes with a license, and the license says what you can do and what you cannot do. Just one easy example, an obvious example. When you buy a printed version of a document, you have one. So if you check out to you, it's no more available for anyone else. When you have an electronic document, like a PDF, for example, you can give it to many people. There is no limit in terms of physical availability. Okay? Each vendor and sometimes also each editor creates its own license for each electronic resource. Another example, you can say, well, it means nothing to say you can access my printed resources from your home because the physical resources are inside the library. But an electronic resource, you can access it from within the university, maybe from within my student house or my parent house, and maybe someone could use these electronic resources from overseas, from anywhere in the world. So, as the owner of the intellectual property of a given electronic resource, which license do I give to you? What are you permitted to do? Can you put your electronic resource just internally within the university, so it can be accessed only when you are in the university physically? Can it be accessed from outside? You just have to have a login and password to prove that you are a student or a teacher. Or can you access it from anywhere in the world, even without a login and password, just because it is often we use the term open access document, so anyone can access it. So the license module within Koha will help you keep track of the permissions and legal issues you have with regarding a contract regarding an electronic resource. Okay? So we will use the term expression and terms, which is a different chapter of the contract you have with the vendor. And you can enter the terms and say, okay, interlibrary loan, is it permitted or not permitted? Contract duration, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. Outside access, permitted, forbidden. Printed copies, permitted, forbidden, etc., etc. And so you will describe all what is legally possible regarding this license. I used this term yesterday on my Manakebi presentation. There is a standard that is starting to arise in the world. That is the ONYX-PL standard. That is a way to describe a license and to exchange licenses between different platforms. It's not heavily used yet, but I think and I hope in the future it will be used much more. In fact, there is some trademark secrets around the contract you signed with a vendor. Some vendors don't want you to publish which permission the vendor gave to you, because of course they may have negotiated another permission with another vendor. Got it? I don't know why I put it this one first. Let's go for this one and I will be back to usage later. The main part of Coral, so first module organization, second module license. Those modules are pretty useless without the third one, which is the resource module. The resource module is dedicated to entering and managing which resources you have subscribed. In a standard university in France, I would say an average size university has something like 200 or 300 packages representing 6,000 different titles. What is a package and what is a title? A package is a group of titles. When you have, for example, a pharmacology faculty in your university, you will need many resources linked to drugs and pharmacology. Okay, so the idea of the vendor of electronic resources is to say, hey, you will not choose titles one by one. We give you a package of everything related to pharmacology, and you buy it, and you know, it is less expensive than buying title one by one. Well, in fact, sometimes it's not possible to buy one by one. So a package stands for a group of titles of electronic resources you will subscribe to. And a title stands for an electronic resource. There are mainly two kinds of electronic resources: e-books and subscriptions. Okay, so nowadays more and more serials have no printed version. They have only an electronic version. So you can subscribe to the electronic version and keep track within Coral of the fact you have acquired this title. Okay. So Coral electronic resource management will also let you deal with any type of electronic resources. So electronic subscription to an electronic periodical, e-books. It can also help you keep track of paid and free titles or packages. And each resource is linked to organizations and license. So for each resource, package or title, you can enter, okay, this resource, my vendor is this organization, the editor is this organization, the consortium who has negotiated the price is this consortium, etc., etc. Okay? And you will also say, this package or this resource, package or titles, comes with this license. So I can do this and that, and I am not permitted to do this and that. Last very important thing with the resource module is the fact that resources are ordered, are acquired, following a workflow that you can define within Coral. For medium to large universities, it is very important because when I'm talking of electronic packages here, it's something that costs sometimes $20,000 US, okay? So you don't say, I will buy it, chop, and that's it, because that's very expensive. So you have, for example, you have first a test phase where you ask the vendor for opening a test account, and then you have 1 month to test the resource. So you will send an email to some people within your university, some researchers or some PhD, etc. Hey, we have a test account to this resource. Can you test it and give me feedback? Is it interesting to buy it? Because it is very expensive, but if it's interesting, I will buy it. Then you get feedback. Then you go to the administrative process to say, I need the money and I need a stamp from the board, the director, I don't know, whatever, etc., etc. And then you pass your order. Then the order is validated, and then the vendor says, okay, your order has been taken into account. Here is the invoice. Then your access is officially open, and you can check that you really have access to the electronic resource. That's one very important thing with electronic resources. When you register to get the daily newspaper, if you don't get it, you see, hey, where is it today? I don't know. I don't see it here. If you are a librarian, even if you don't read the issue, you know it's here because it's passes through your hands and you will put it on the shelves. But for an electronic resource, you never see them and you don't use it. So you have to put in place some way to check that the access you are supposed to have, you have it really. Otherwise, you would have to wait until a student or a teacher says, hey, but we have bought this and I can't find an article I am looking for that is supposed to be here. Okay? And of course, often students and teachers, they don't know what you have acquired, so they can't complain that they don't have access to what you have acquired. So managing, I acquired this and I have access to this is a very important thing with electronic resources. And Coral will help you doing that by keeping track of resources, organization, license, and issues. For each resource, you can also declare any kind of issue. you have with the resource. So for example, a student can do a search on EDS, for example, and say, okay, I have found this article that is a part of this title, and this title, you told me we have access to this title, and I couldn't. That's an issue with this resource, and you can it can be filled into Corel, so you keep track of all the bad things that happened with your resources. Last module of Corel is usage statistics. There is another standard. So sorry for today, many standards: Kabart, OnyxPL, Sushi. There is a standard called Sushi, which has nothing to do with the sushi you eat. Okay. I don't know why they called it sushi. A sushi is a standard that is used by most electronic vendors now that give access to usage statistics for the resource you have acquired. Okay, so for example, every month, Corel will automatically connect to the sushi platform of vendor A and say, give me my sushi files. No, it's counter files. It's, every month, Corel will say, hey sushi platform, can you give me the statistical files? And the sushi platform will send you the statistical files saying, it depends on the vendor, but for each month or each day, which resources have been consulted by how many people. Okay, so you can keep track of the usage of your electronic resources, and at the end of the year, for example, discover that this resource that is very expensive, 20,000 euros or $20,000 a year, and you had only 3 access all over the year, so maybe you can cancel your registration to Corel, to this resource, and that's very helpful to manage your budget and keep a good eye on your spendings. So, blue and blue, that's not the easiest to read. So now the question is, how can we integrate Koha and Corel to build? This is a sub-part of the big graph I presented yesterday, integrating Koha and Corel to build a new library platform able to manage both printed and electronic resources. Can I have a laser? A pointer? Yeah. So here is Koha. You know what is Koha. Here is Corel. Our idea and the projects the development we are working on is to integrate Koha, Corel, a link resolver and discovery, which is EDS, and a public interface, which is the Koha public interface. Yesterday, Alvet made a presentation about it. Alvet, you are not here, I think. He should be there tomorrow, but today he is not. I was about to say some thankful things to him. I will not. So the idea here is the acquisition process within Corel will have some consequences on your budget, on your catalog, and on your acquisition. So we are working on creating a link between Koha and Corel to manage the electronic part of the acquisition within Corel, because the testing phase, etc., what I described just before, it will be done into Corel, but the budget consequences, the acquisition process itself, like placing an order, sending it to the vendor, etc., including using EDI, because Koha is EDI compliant, will be done into Koha. And once the acquisition process is done, Koha will send a message to Coral to say, okay, acquisition is done, access is supposed to be open, please check. And we are also working on linking Coral to activate all the resources into the discovery. Because I hope you have understood that into Coral there is no resource. There is just a description of the resources you have acquired. Okay? In Coral, you just have the information. I bought a package of 200 ebooks related to pharmacology. You just have this information. You don't, in Coral, you don't have the ebooks themselves. The ebooks, they are stored by your resource vendor, and you access them through a website or through the discovery or through the vendor website. So you access them from here. So the link between Coral and the discovery link resolver is to say, okay, into Coral I made the process of acquiring, and when it is done, Coral kind of send a message to your discovery saying, okay, you can now give access to this resource because I bought it. Okay? So I presented the ManaKB project yesterday. The Koha Coral integration is the second quite big project Biblib is working on. And what's next? First of all, well, in fact, this presentation was the one I made last year at KohaCon 16. I made only a few updates. I could have updated this slide because a very important thing is we had to convince both communities that was important for both of them to have a link between those two tools, because the Koha community and the Coral community are made of very different people. Well, not very different. Well, are made of different people that are not used to talk together, and some have Coral and they are happy and they don't want to use Koha. Some have Koha and don't want to deal with Coral. So the idea is not to merge the two software into one. The idea is to keep the two software as they are and create links, create bridges between the two to have a platform for those who want both. So the Coral community agrees that it needed, but they say they wanted to be as ILS agnostic as possible. So we are working on developing something that will link Koha, Coral and an ILS, not Coral and Koha. So if people, for example, from Folio would like to say we will link Coral and Folio, that should be possible. I have no idea technically how we could do it, but in the idea, what we are doing on Coral to integrate it with Koha is doing something to integrate Coral with an ILS. That can be Koha or another one. The Koha community is also pretty convinced now of the need to link Koha to an ERM. And the only open source ready for production ERM available in the open source market is Coral. So in fact, there is not so many options. So we have started to search some funding, and we have had some funding made by EBSCO, made by us directly. We funded one guy, and also made by Bywater Solution, who EBSCO and Bywater Solution paid a part of the guy who is working on Koha Coral integration now. And we are looking for some more funding. So if you have some million pesos you don't know what to do with, you can join me. I have a cell phone. I will give it, no problem. How do we plan to implement this KohaCoral link? Mainly using web services that will help both platforms to communicate. Who know what is a web service? Okay. Who don't know what is a web service? Okay, so the other, either you are sleeping, or you don't understand me, or you even don't know that you don't know what is a web service. So who don't know what is a web service? And who knows? And the other, why don't you raise your hand? Because I don't see another option. Well, let me explain for those who were brave enough to say, I don't know what is a web service. A web service is something available on server, on the web, that any other software can call sending some parameters, and in return, the web service gives some results. Okay, so for an example, in a previous slide, in this one, I was saying once the acquisition process is done within Koha, Koha will send a message to Coral saying, okay, acquisition is done. This message is sent using a web service. So Koha will call something on Coral saying, hey, electronic subscription number 123 is acquired. And the web service on Coral is ingesting this information, saving something on Coral, and answering to Koha, okay, thank you. So now you know what is web service. So most of the work we are doing is using web services. That's very important, this idea, because it means we are not linking through a kind of hard links the two software. We are not accessing the Koha database from Coral or the Coral database from within Koha. We are using standard interface, the web service, and it's the best way to implement it for having a long-term flexibility and being able to link Coral to another ILS or Coral to another ERM. We have some change to do in the data model in Koha and also in Coral to keep some identifiers of the other software. Okay. For example, a budget, it has an internal identifier within Koha, and a budget has its own internal identifier within Coral, so we must keep track of which internal in Koha is the internal in Coral. And there are many use cases to deal with. For example, how the user will be able to declare, I am testing an electronic resource, which consequences in terms of acquisition, how will we manage the renewal of an electronic resource. Another question that is not here, but it's how will we manage mixed resources, because sometimes you have electronic resources that are also printed, and you cannot buy just the electronic or just the printed. You buy kind of package of the printed and the electronic version. So the printed is managed into Koha, the electronic is managed into Coral, how to have just one management. We are working on it. I was expecting to have a first working version for next summer, so yeah, today, because summer is today, no? I think so. Yes, summer is today, so so we are late. Because it's not really working. No, I'm kidding, but there are many things that have been written. We still need time. I hope at the end of summer we will have some things working. Not everything working, but some things already working. The website, kohacommunity.org. Coral is coralerm.org. ERM stands for Coral Electronic Resources Management, because Coral is a very common name, so we usually say Coral ERM. And thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Now the floor is open for your questions to Paul. Anyone who has a question for Paul? Yes, sir.
Hi, Mengu from Devinim, Turkey. As much as I see the Coral doesn't have many community members as Koha. So instead of integrating an ERM module to Koha, why not we are writing a new module in Koha? Because there are lots of people in Koha community, and there are lots of companies, and Coral is PHP based, so Koha is Perl based. Why do you prefer to integrate but not to write new module? Thanks.
I think I must answer two things. First of all, and that's one of my mottos since 3 or maybe now 4 years, we must disintegrate the I of ILS. I strongly think that we should promote small modules talking together using web services, because there is no reason to have, one example is very relevant. Why using a specific acquisition modules in your ILS if you think that your university or your school or your municipality also has an acquisition software for acquiring chairs and tables and pencils, etc., etc. Why do we have to have an OPAC, specific OPAC, and while your university has a portal and has a website? So we have linked already Koha with Drupal, for example, or Koha with Boki, another portal. And continuing with this idea, I strongly think we must not add many new features into Koha and make just Koha bigger and bigger and bigger, but we must make Koha communicating more and more and more with other kind of software. That's my first answer. The second answer is Coral is really a great piece of software in terms of features. So why reinventing the wheel? It already exists. I agree it has a small community, but some people from the Koha community are interested in it. So I hope in the future the Coral community will also grow and become larger. I am highly involved in the Coral steering committee, and I try to convince them to work with the Koha community, etc., etc. So I think I prefer this way. Well, I've decided to go this way, and no one in the Koha community told me, well, I disagree with you, I will work on an ERM into Koha. So as usual in open source, the one who does is the one who wins. So if you want to add an ERM into Koha, feel free.
Maybe we will.
Any other questions? None? Okay. And now, yes, sir.
Hi, Paul. Halim from Malaysia. I'm just confused about, because I have never been using Coral before, but the way that you are presenting it is just like, I don't know whether it conveys or relate to our easy proxy, and do Coral and Koha can replace easy proxy? Because
no. No. The,
Because in open source, with all due respect, we have like easy proxy.
something to replace
We have
EasyProxy.
OpenAthons. OpenAthons is paid.
Yeah.
It's a paid one, so that
The Coral is not written to help you access to the resources. Coral is helping you managing the acquisition of the resources. That's why once you have acquired a resource and store and everything about what you acquired, you activate the resource. In fact, here I could put in the link resolver, I could put a big box with a link resolver, easy proxy or open Athens and discovery and etc. etc. The easy proxy would be at this layer. So Coral says, okay, acquisition process done, now activate. But there is no, Coral does not manage the access to the resource itself.
thanks.
Any other questions from the group? Okay, now may we call on Ms. Maisel Marifosque, Conference Chair and Vice President, and Mr. Eugene of On Strike Solutions to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Paul Poulain of Biblive, France, in grateful recognition for sharing his time and knowledge as a resource speaker for the 2017 KohaCon International Conference held on June 19 to 23, 2017 at Ayala Museum, Asian Institute of Management, Makati City, Metro Manila, Philippines. Given this 21st day of June 2017, signed Conference Chair, Vice President, ASLP, Maisel Y. Marifosque, and Randolph D. Mariano, President, ASLP. May product presentation pa pong Biblive.
In between?
Oo.
Wala na,
Tapos
nakuha na namin
break
yung oras.
time. So break time namin na
So,
time.
hindi. Product presentation. Sila mo lang sila.
Wala na yung sunod doon. So break na. So break na. 10 a.m. Yeah, we will have our break for now, and we'll resume at 10 a.m. Thank you. Sorry, it's 10:15, sorry. Ito pa panamiya. And also, some announcement for the Intramuros Tour confirmation. Please proceed to the registration booth. The following names that I will call: Artiche Maria Victoria, Baba Paulina, Badua Diana Rose, Bagares Jeneline, Bano Mercy, Bautista Carmela, Berinia Johnny, Caballero Maricon, Kamangeg Calixto, Kapili Joseph, Castro Catherine, Kausing Marciana, Constantino Joan, Coral Piquero Valerie, Cruz Raquel, Dangani Clarissa, Del Monte David Jr., De la Cruz Angeli, Diaz Chad, Diaz Lordeline, Diozis Dani Cris, Domingo Joselito, Dominguez Darilyn, Duque Jason, Isguera Princess Joy, España Maria Leia, Fedeline Sara, Fonseca Noel, Galiana Aprilin, Galora Shine, Gatus Maynard, Ilagan Aileen, Javier Danilo, Jimenez Sheila, Lagmay Aileen, Lim Anilin, Limbo Maylin, Llamas Rechi, Magcalas Melody, Marquez Marian, Martinez Malvin, Navarrete Dan, Navarro Marifi, Novenario Ibrahim, Ordonio Nino, Pacayde Nicanor, Pasion Maria Cherry, Pelagio Carl Jerome, Peñaranda Ana, Prieto Elvera, Quakep Raquel, Ramirez Edmir, Rivera Sally, Sinag Jessica, Soriano Reginald, Soriano Rosalina, Sumaoy Ann Royal, Tabonda Eileen, Talana Carmencita, Tansyoko Kevin Conrad, Tumlos Jessica, Velasquez Patrica, Victoria Catherine. Please proceed to the registration for the names that I call for your confirmation in the intramuros tour later at 1 p.m. Thank you.
Half an hour, more or less. So,
You have a timer
yes,
indicating your time.
in the PC, there is a timer of the presentation, but I think that it will be shorter than the time
All right.
schedule because it's very technical and I'm going to short many parts because otherwise people will be slept.
All right. It's okay. We have arranged some photos.
Okay.
Closing remarks. Minutes. Okay, we are about to start the second session for today. May we request everyone to please settle down? Thank you. Okay, for our second session, to discuss the publishing library linked data via Koha and Aliada open source systems, let's all welcome Ms. Cristina Garreta of Scanbit, Spain. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for attending, and a special thanks to the organizers for inviting me to this edition of the KohaCon conference. I will try to follow what Paul said before, the trend of disintegrating the application, because I think that yes, that's the trend, to select the modules you need or you prefer to work with all your resources. Because as you know, libraries are not now the traditional idea of the libraries, and libraries should be an integrating service for the institutions, for the universities, for the public administrations, and so on. So I will present a possible module for your library, just to help you in the challenge of opening your data as linked data. I will explain what's linked data because yes, it's a very mentioned topic in the last COAC conferences, but maybe for most of the libraries it's a complex term or complex concept to understand. So as a librarian, I will try to explain it in the most simpler way because it's complex, I know. So first of all, a short presentation of the company I belong, Scambit. Scambit is a Spanish IT company with 20 years of experience providing library software to libraries and also to archives, museums, and so on. Because we started with this issue with Dobis Libis library systems, one of the first library systems in this sector. And Dobis Libis was open source and was of IBM. And we know more or less how to work with users communities, with librarian communities. And because of that, we are here because we trust in library communities and open source communities. When we started, we provided proprietary products to the librarians. But now, and from 2010, more or less, we are providing services to librarians because the professionals working in Scambit are experts in implementing library software and in providing services for libraries. So we think that that know-how it's good for helping libraries in the challenge of implementing a new software in the library, and we consider that the companies, that the supporters are essential in the communities in that challenge, in the challenge of renewing library software and evolving the software and adapting libraries to the new era. Well, as examples of the software we implement, Koha, of course, Viewfind. As you know, Viewfind is the open source discovery tool most installed in the world. LibreSuite, our proprietary system, now provided without license, and DSpace, the repository. We have projects in Spain, Italy, UK, Germany, or Mexico. And our team is formed by software developers, systems administrators, and librarians. As innovation actions, we have Aliada, the product I will present after this presentation. And we presented, or we are involved in the Koha Friends in Spain, with the Spanish users of Koha in Spain. And we are in contact with the Italian group of Koha users. And now, and today, we are presenting at the International Koha Conference. And some reference of the company, public administration and universities. And well, we think that we are committed to the Koha community because we have traveled for a lot of hours. So I think that it's a good example. Well, what's linked data? I think that you have heard about linked data a lot of times in the previous KohaCon and so on, but just for the people who don't know about linked data, brief introduction. Yes, linked data is a technology of the semantic web. It's a way to provide structured data for all the web applications. And it's based on standards such as HTTP, RDF, URI, Sparkle, and others. Okay, this is to share information in a way that machines or servers from any domain can understand the information. Okay, so the goal or the main goal of this technology is to connect different resources or different sources, data sources, and to have the same language or the same schema for codifying the data. Well, as you know, the data codified in library systems is codified according a special schema for libraries, and with the with the information society and the revolution with the digital transformation of the technologies, services, and so on. Libraries have to overcome the difficulties in being part of the web, and for achieving that, all the library communities in the world are working on converting the marked data to linked data, just to achieve that library data will be on the web, will be part of the web. Because I will explain later that it's not the same to publish documents on the web to be indexed by Google and other web browsers or web search engines. It's not the same as publishing data into the web, okay? Because the goal is to be part of the web. Yes, it's very technical, but that's the main idea, to be part of the web and not to publish documents on the web, okay? Because library data are very rich data, and libraries are, in my opinion, because I am a librarian, but I think that's true. Libraries have very rich data, and they are the information providers for all the heritage data. And if the libraries the libraries aren't part of the web, they could disappear, okay? Because as you know, most of the users go to Google to search information or go to other platforms to search for information, okay? So if we are part of the web, libraries will have a lot to do and will be, will have the role that the libraries should have in this information society. Okay, so link open data. Link open data, yes, it's a technology of the web, of the semantic web, and the rules are the following. The data should publish it under open license, okay? Your data should be open, okay? Your data should be readable by machines, okay? If your data are in MARC, they will be read by library systems, but not by other systems in other domains, other sectors, and so on. You should publish your data under a non-proprietary format, okay? And your data should be published according to the RDF standards and a schema for publishing data. And your data should be related, should be linked with other data in the web, on the web. Okay. Yes, this is very technical. Uh, Now you are cataloging metadata. So the metadata are formed but by a lot of data. So each data of a record should be identified by an URI, okay? Each data should be a thing in the web, okay? And that thing will belong to your library dataset. So all your data will be identified by a URI, and you should provide information for each data. Well, the standards RDF and Sparkle to search data. This is an example of the URIs. Well, why? Why we should use data instead of metadata? For example, when you query the web should know what's the exact meaning of your query. If you type Venus in your web browser will know that you are looking for a planet or for a tennis player or for a goodness because they are querying aside what says that Venus could be a planet, a tennis player, and a goodness. So, what does it mean? That your data should have a context, okay? Just to know, yes, what data is it? Okay. Okay, very technical, I know. Well, and why library link data? What I said before is that we should publish our metadata in a way that the web understands. So, for example, if all the libraries will publish their data as open data sets, all of you will be able to query all the data sets to reuse data for the cataloging. So you will save a lot of money cataloging. So one of the goals of the library link data is to have an open data sets to reuse data among all the libraries in the world. Okay, to be compliant with the web standards, because there is a specific incubator group in the WWW consortium in the web to recommend libraries the use of linked data. Linked data format is more durable and robust than the standards used in libraries because they are changing all the time and they are very specific for libraries. And developers, most of the times, don't know what's MARC, for example, or what's the specific formats of libraries. So if we convert our metadata to RDF data, all the developers in all the sectors, in all the industries, will now the way to manage those data and to reuse those data, okay? Yes, if the libraries convert their metadata to data, they will be more visible on the web. Okay, yes, because linked data can be easily understood by computing, resulting in opportunities for improved library workflow, and so on. And you will be you will publish your data according the big platforms such as Google, Wikipedia, and so on. So if you want to relate your data with the data on Google, on Wikipedia, and other general data sets, you will have to publish as linked data, at least at this moment. Okay. There are a lot of examples of very important institutions working on linked data. For example, the National Library of Spain, the National Library of France, European Library, German Library, British Library, Library of Congress, the OCLC associations, and there is a specific project called LOTLAM, Link Open Data in Libraries, Archives, and Museums, that is also working on linked data. Because related with this and with Aliada, yes, there is also another trend to find synergies between libraries, archives, and museums. So all those heritage institutions have the same, more or less the same challenge in this technology, and they should work together in this, yes, in this technology. So what's the approach of the community? Well, on the Koha Wiki, it's a page with the work done in order to implement RDF or the semantic technologies in the libraries. Okay, the first steps were to transform MARC to RDF. There are a lot of tools to do it manually, for example, that, or the tools of the Library of Congress to convert MARC to B-frame RDF. Okay, well, when you convert MARC to RDF, you get triples, okay? Triples are data, yes, are data, not metadata. So they can't be stored in a common database. They should be stored in a specific database for triples, for RDF. Okay. As librarians, you have, yes, you have a lot of things to do in order to do the mapping between MARC and RDF, okay? It's the same that when you transport MARC to Dublin Core, okay? So there are a lot of mappings from MARC to RDF according different ontologies, according different models, but the librarians should decide the final mapping for your library. Okay. Yes, it's also necessary to implement an interface to let other users search the library data set, okay? Because data are for machines, not for humans. And with an interface, as in the OPAC, humans will be able to search the data set. Okay, more or less this. Now, at this moment, Koha is able to export records to RDF, and in my opinion, the main discussion is to select B-frame or FRBR, because as you know, FRBR is the conceptual model of the library data. Okay, as you, I don't know if here is, I don't know, it's a trend to convert metadata to data, but the use model recommended by IFLA is the FRBR. This model says that there are in the library data entities called work, expression, manifestation, and item, okay? But yes, the American librarians or developers published the B-frame model that is much simpler than FRBR, and it's better for converting data from MARC to RDF, okay? But now it's there is not a standard, so we are waiting for a standard. In my opinion, B-frame it's simpler for the conversion, so it's best for working with linked data. And okay, a reference to the last Hackfest in Marseille. Okay, so what to do to start working with linked data? Okay, you have to catalog your data as always. You have to export your data as MARC XML or as Dublin Core and so on. And you have to select an ontology and vocabularies. Okay, this is new. You have to convert your metadata to data from MARC to RDF. You have to link your data with other dataset published on the web, for example, DBpedia, the dataset of Wikipedia, or Europeana in Europe, or the dataset of the Library of Congress, and so on. And finally, publish your linked data as an open dataset, as a closed dataset, and for machines or for humans, okay? Just to provide your data to other users, web search engines, or other servers, applications, and so on. Because as public libraries, you should publish your data to be reused. So librarians are expert in cataloging and making accessible their resources, but they don't know about linked data technology. So they need an ally. Because of that, we started the project in Europe, because when we started the project, there were not a lot of initiatives in publishing library linked data. So because of that, the European Commission funded this project. And yes, the project data are the following. We started in 2013. We were a consortium of art museums, library, ILS vendors, experts on semantic technologies. We finished the project on 2015, and the result was an open source tool, okay? Because I think this is one of the key difference of the key aspect of the project, that Aliada is a library linked data converter and publisher, and it's free, okay? It's a free tool, it's an open source tool, so you can use it in your library, in your institution, to start converting your data into linked open data. And yes, the license. So yes, it's very difficult to understand the semantic technologies by the librarians and so on. So because of that, we created Aliada, that it's just a module to integrate it with the library system and to automatically convert your metadata, your MARC metadata, to RDF, and to publish that RDF datasets on the web, okay? So it's very easy for librarians to publish their metadata to data with Aliada. You can publish your bibliographic data, but also your authority data. And Aliada is compliant with MARC XML and Dublin Core formats. Now, when when we developed Aliada, the existing model in Europe was the FRBR model. So we designed the ontology of Aliada according this model and not according bitframe, but it's possible to replace the vocabularies and the model with bitframe. Okay, we used an ontology. An ontology is the conceptual model to describe the data, to create the data, because data in linked data should have a context, not only data, but context. And this ontology, this conceptual model is a conceptual model created by the CDOC. An institution in Europe for museums. And this organization created this model to merge the descriptions from libraries and museums. And because of that, we decided to select this conceptual model. We used also vocabularies, extended vocabularies such as SCOS for subject headings and FOAF for describing persons and roles. Okay, Aliada is able to link your dataset with Europeana, British National Bibliography, Spanish National Library Bibliography, Freebase, DBpedia, Library of Congress subject headings, BIAF, and so on. Because your data should be linked to other data to be considered as linked data. I think that this is one of the differences or one of the advances with the respect to the existing work in the Koha community. Because in the Koha community, as far as I know, it's a work, there is a work for converting MARC to RDF, for publishing the RDF. But I don't know if there is a work for link the dataset of the libraries with external datasets, okay? So Aliada allows to do it. And another special thing of Aliada, respect from the work done in the community, is that it's possible to create an Sparkle endpoint. Okay, what is this? An Sparkle endpoint is the way to publish your database on the web, okay? If you have your dataset open, you have to provide an Sparkle endpoint to let other machines, institution, application to query your dataset and to reuse your data, okay? So it's very important to have an Sparkle endpoint, a published Sparkle endpoint, to let other institutions, other libraries to reuse your data, because the main goal of publishing data is to have your data reused by other library institutions, companies, and by other search engines. Okay, this is an example of the work that is being done in Europe about linked data and so on in libraries. In Europe, there is a conference called Semantic Web in Libraries, and the OSMA is from the National Library of Finland, and it's a good expert in library linked data. And he did a comparison between the different works on library linked data and semantic web in libraries around the world. So I don't know if you can see that Aliada is one of the works considered in this study. Okay, so Aliada, main features. Yes, I have to finish. the user interface is in Spanish, English, Hungarian, Italian, and it can be translated to many languages. It is possible to import mark XML records, bibliographic and authority records, and LIDO. What's LIDO? LIDO is the mark for the museums catalogers, okay? In Europe, at least. It includes a mapping templates for the crosswalk between MARC and RDF, and this crosswalk is based on the conceptual model FRBR 00. And Aliada has a module called RDFizer for automatically convert MARC to RDF, and the linking to selected external datasets, the creation of the Sparkle endpoint, and so on. The second prototype of Aliada included the Dublin core conversion to RDF, because there are libraries that are using repositories, for example, and repositories normally use Dublin core as metadata schema, and Dublin core can be converted to RDF. A lot of features. And finally, that the architecture, okay, I will speed up. Yes, Aliada is a module that can be integrated with the library systems through web services, REST web services, okay? So you can have your library systems and Aliada module, and they can be integrated, fully integrated, or you can just use Aliada for importing the metadata and your ILS separately. Okay, so when you use Aliada, first of all, you select and validate the metadata, okay, Dublin core, mark XML, from, for example, your Koha export files or from your Koha OI server. When you have the data on Aliada, you automatically convert them to RDF according to the mapping templates. Your metadata have been split into data, okay, into triples, and the triples were stored in a database within Aliada. Okay, and then you discover links between your data and other external data automatically. And finally, you have the possibility of publishing the dump of your data, the Sparkle endpoint, and you can integrate it with the Data Hub. The Data Hub is a platform for collecting or for exposing a lot of data sets around the world, open data sets that you can reuse later. And well, if you are interested in the technical features of Aliada, but I will finish with an example of a full integration of Aliada with another library system, but this can be done with Koha. Using the RESTful API of Aliada, for example, Koha could integrate all those functionalities into their modules. Okay, so it's possible to develop a new module in Aliada because all the applications are open source. Okay, and if you want to know more about the project, this is the website of the project, and the tool is on GitHub. There is I think that it's possible to install it with Docker. And what's next? Our next work on Aliada is to add bframe as conceptual model, to add schema.org as vocabulary, customize the customization of the mapping, the data quality assurance, and a catalog for human search of datasets. And this is all. Sorry for for a very technical presentation, but I think that it's good that you know about linked data in the library world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Christina. And now the floor is now open for your questions to Miss Gareta. Anyone who has a question? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Maricon Caballero from Apex Schools. Ma'am, here in the Philippines, we are more familiar with RDA, which is also based from FRBR. So it's the first time that personally I have heard of RDF, which is Resource Description Framework. So for us to fully understand, how does RDA connects, or what's the difference between RDA and RDF?
Oof, it's very technical. uh, well, um, well, we created Aliada for not explaining that because Aliada convert automatically. But okay, RDF is not a conceptual model. It's just a way to to create a file of metadata. It's like an XML file, and you have to first select a model, and there are a lot of existing models to help you understanding the conversion from MARC, for example, to RDF. But it's very technical. I think that at this moment, libraries should need a supporter for understanding the schemas and the metadata. But as a librarian, I think that you have the responsibility of helping IT people to understand the conceptual models of the library data. Okay, if you know your data, for example, in the library data, there are authors, there are relationships between authors and works, and so on. You will help to the IT people to implement RDF conversions and RDF metadata and so on, because in this challenge, the work is, the key issue is to work together, IT people and library people, because you know the conceptual model, you know your data, and so on, but you don't know the schemas of the web, the technology of the web, and so on. So that's my opinion. I don't know if I have answered your question, but
maybe okay. I can add to that. Probably resource description and access, or resource description is AACR2R. This access is for the subjects and the authorities, okay? And RDF is the MARC or MARC XML today,
yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So for explaining it simply.
I am a librarian, so I don't know exactly what's the difference, but yes, SCOS is for subjects, specifically for subjects, but that's a conceptual model, not a schema. RDF is the way to codify your data. So there are a lot of models, but the way of for codifying your data for being published on the semantic web is RDF. It's like MARC, okay? Because in MARC you can use SCOS also.
Yes, ma'am, at the back.
Hello, I'm Annie Lim. I'm Annalyn Lim from the University of the Philippines. To expound more about the question, FRBR is a conceptual model. It's being used by the RDA, and RDA is what we use for descriptive cataloging, right? So RDF is just like a file format. It's like XML. It's like more like when you use BibFrame, it's more like you're looking to XML format. Like, so do not confuse yourself. Linked data is another form of how we could display our data, and so that, for example, in our OPAC, in our catalog, we are cataloging a UNESCO publication, UNESCO document, and we know that in UNESCO website, it's free, you can download, so we could put the URL or URI of this document, and it's simply doing a linked data in a way. It's a simple way to link those materials. Yun. I hope I explain it. So my question is, for a simple, we are using we in the University of the Philippines have a customized LMS or ILS, and it's called iLive, and we are doing another version of iLive. I forgot what it's written with MySQL or something, or PHP, I forgot. But can we use Aliada as another module? Because we are, one of the requirements I asked the programmers is they use the XML. Our data can be extracted as XML and mods, and also there's in the Library of Congress there's the BibFrame converter. I've also asked to use that facility. So some of the libraries in the Philippines are copying or using our website also for Filipiniana. So it would be very helpful to other also countries outside the Philippines who are copy cataloging. Yeah. So thank you. My question is, can it be easily incorporated in any ILS? How do we do it?
Okay, I would I would like to separate two things. Okay, the publication and the reuse. Okay, Aliada is just for publication, so it's you can install Aliada on your servers to convert and expose your, for example, your Filipino authority data to be reused by all the libraries. But if you want to reuse linked data published by other institution, yes, you have to implement an Sparkle query on Koha. It's a new development on Koha to query external data sets and to get the data from external data sets as, for example, JSON formats. And yes, there are a lot of ways to do it, but that's a new development for Koha. It's easy to implement it, but you have to query to external data sets. But Aliada just for publishing. So you could publish easily your data with Aliada, but they will be published not according the BibFrame at this moment, but according the FRBR model. So yes, you have to customize Aliada for your institution.
Ma'am, sorry, okay na ba? Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, other questions? Affirmations? Wala na po.
Thank you. Should you have other questions to Mr. Paul Pauline for his session a while ago and to Ms. Gareta, you can email us at aslplibrarians@gmail.com, and we will try our best to reply on your email questions. And now, may we call on Ms. Maisel Marifosque, Conference Chair and Vice President of ASLP, and Mr. Eugene Espinosa, for KoHa Integrated Library System volunteers, to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Ms. Cristina Gareta of Scanbit Technology and Services, Spain, in grateful recognition for sharing his time and knowledge as a resource speaker for 2017 KoHa International Conference held on June 19 to 23, 2017 at Ayala Museum and Asian Institute of Management, Makati City, Metro Manila, Philippines. Given this 21st day of June 2017, signed Conference Chair, Vice President Maisel Y. Marifosque, and Mr. Randolph Mariano, ASLP President. Thank you, Ms. Greta. And may we request Ms. Maisel and Mr. Eugene to please stay on the front to award the Certificate of Appreciations for our partners and sponsors for the KohaCon 2017. May we call on Ms. Cecil Aison of Ayala Museum for the Certificate of Appreciation for Ayala Museum and Filipinas Heritage Library in grateful recognition for your generous support as a sponsor for 2017 KoHa International Conference held on June 19 to 21 at Ayala Museum, Makati City, Metro Manila, Philippines. Signed, Ms. Maisel Marifosque, ASLP Vice President, Conference Chair, and Mr. Randolph D. Mariano, ASLP President. Thank you. And for our KoHanep sponsors, may we call on Mr. Paul Pauline and Mr. Gaitan Boyson to receive the Certificate of Appreciation to be BLIB in grateful recognition for your generous support as a sponsor for 2017 KoHa International Conference held on June 19 to 21, 2017 at Ayala Museum, Makati City, Metro Manila, Philippines. Given this 21st day of June 2017, signed Ms. Maisel Marifosque, ASLP Vice President, and Mr. Randolph D. Mariano, ASLP President. Thank you, sirs. And we would also like to mention, though they were not here, Gobi Library Solutions from EBSCO and Bywater Solutions for KoHanep sponsorship. And for our Kobahagi sponsorship, may we call on again on stage Ms. Cristina Gareta and Mr. For Scanbit Technology, and Mr. Harold Fernandez for Bibal Group to receive the certificate of appreciation. And for the Bival group, Mr. Harold Fernandez. And for our media sponsor, may we call on Mr. Ray Pacheco of Manila Bulletin to receive the certificate of appreciation. Mr. Ray Pacheco. And thank you. And now we will have our photo op with our speakers who are present today and the ASLP board and the On Strike Solutions volunteer, ILS volunteer.